Hello there. How are you, Professor? I'm actually redoing this assignment. I just realized that initially I did not use, I believe, the right type of resource in order to create my video regarding data artifact number two. Going back over this assignment, I realized that I wanted to do a screencast to show you exactly how we went about our data meeting number two, which was based around triangulating our data set. Initially, what we did as a group was we went ahead and we all put our artifacts into this folder that was created by Andrew Tran. And me, Andrew, as well as Delphine were able to include all of our different artifacts, and I'm really going to focus on some of the artifacts that I presented to my group. One of the artifacts that I presented was a genetics lab pretest. This was a assignment that I gave my students before my genetics unit in order to assess how well uh, what they already knew about the topic before I presented it to them. That way, I can stay away from kind of going over material that they already knew, coming from earlier science courses, and focusing on what's really important. So this was one of my artifacts that I shared with my group. Another artifact that I shared was my DNA lab project, which was called Javier DNA and EDA 2. This assignment was focused around students knowing the structure of DNA, knowing how to put together the correct bases, as well as just being a little bit more creative with having a 3D model instead of just looking at the pictures or maybe just manipulating it online. Students were able to kind of get to touch, feel, and even show what they knew about DNA structure. Another artifact that I shared with my group was my, as I scroll down, I'm sorry, was my rubric that I used for one of my projects in my classroom. Again, this was more so based around, called it a PBL lesson, but now that I think about it, it was more so a project that students did through online learning. They were given a variety of resources in which they were using online to gather information. And then in the end, students had to create a video segment that was going to air um, on a news channel to kind of answer a question that a viewer had posed. Again, this was around the topic of genetics. Students had to look at um, different aspects of genetics, different aspects of DNA, and how traits were transferred from parents to offspring. That was the artifacts that I presented to my group. Again, we centered our exploratory question from our initial data meeting one around the importance of our teachers spending too much time on projects versus making sure the students master the content. So this here is my tracking sheet that we used. So we all went over some of our data that we presented. Andrew presented some of the research projects that he's been using in his classroom in chemistry, as well as Delphine showing us some examples from her science fair rubric, as well as some student led examples. My examples were the bottom five, which were the genetics pretest, the genetics test, the DNA Twizzlers lab, the DNA project based learning assignment, and the grading rubric that I showed. As far as the gaps, we noticed that these were all instructional gap with the students. That's what they showed. And then the importance of each assignment. The pre-test, we gave it a five. I believe it was a five. I believe that it was very important for students to take the pre-test. That way, I was able to kind of gather my data before, and then also giving them the post-test, which was also a five on my significance scale to assess students and what they knew from the unit, whether I needed to go back and reteach, as well as getting the masteries of the standards. DNA Twizzlers Lab, I gave that between a three and a four. That's why both numbers were highlighted. I believe it was important. I believe it was definitely essential for students to kind of get that opportunity to show what they knew in another way through differentiation, not just through testing, but students were able to go through the project. And again, I noticed, as our exploratory question stated, we noticed that students did do significantly better on the project versus the test as far as the learning gap was concern. Project-based learning assignment, another instructional gap. It was given a 5 on the significance scale. And then the rubric that was used for the final project after the learning took place, the summative assessment, was also a 5 on the significance scale. Again, that was another project grade that I gave students. On the right, on the last column, we see the um, this was the prominence, the learning gap observed. Um, for my pretest, I noticed the learning gap was maybe around between 1 to 2. A lot of students didn't really know a lot about the material anyway, so I didn't observe a big learning gap there. With my genetics test, I gave it a 3. It was a wide range of students who understood what was going on and students who did not. The Twizzlers lab, again, I gave it a 3. Some students knew the structure, some students knew what I was looking for, some students knew how the bases paired up, others still struggled with some of those concepts. The project-based learning assignment, I gave it a 2. Students were able to work in groups. This calls for a smaller gap. I believe students were able to kind of support each other through their group work. And also they were able to use the internet as a resource, media, technology, which helped them to kind of be more engaged. And that lessened my learning gap as well. The project, again, students created videos in which they showed what they knew from their from the project-based learning assignment, from the online modules. And again, this did not show much of a learning gap at all. Most of the students understood what was going on and seemed to be on track with what I expected them to do. So my data meeting 2 definitely was very interesting. We were all able to bring forth a very good artifacts. And I feel as though this definitely helped me to understand the data a bit more and also helped me to create a deeper understanding of our exploratory question and what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to um, dig deeper into to find some solutions and answers towards. And I feel as though my group is very on point with this. So I'm looking forward to data meeting 3. Some things that we need to clear up and clarify is just maybe definitely getting more towards the question and seeing how we can bring forth better solutions. We also just want to focus on making sure that we are looking at data that is relevant, data that will bring forth actual answers. And I would even say maybe bringing forth more student created work. In my group so far, we really brought forth just a lot of the assignments that we used and the rubrics that we used. Delphine did bring some science fair example poster boards, but I would like to see maybe some more examples of tests and maybe projects. But we do have a problem with the privacy, with schools not allowing teachers to really take out student work. But we figured that maybe if you kept the name a secret, you would be able to do that. So just looking forward to that in the future. Triangulating was definitely fun. It was definitely a messy process, as Venables mentioned, but we were all able to bring forth something to the table. So definitely helpful, and it will help us get to where we're going. Thank you.